Millions of people over 60 are quietly being driven into dangerously low blood pressure by the very pills meant to save their lives. Are you sure you're not one of them? Hello, my name is Ethan Marshall. I'm a 60-year-old physician practicing here in the United States with more than 3 decades of experience caring for patients. Let me start with a truth that may shock you. Millions of older adults are being prescribed too many blood pressure medications, and a large number of them don't actually need all of those drugs. I've seen patients of mine grow dizzy, weak, and even collapse. Not because of untreated high blood pressure, but because their medications lowered it far too much. Isn't it ironic that the very thing meant to protect you can become the source of new risks? If you care about real-life health issues, stories drawn from clinical experience, and knowledge that helps you live stronger, I invite you to subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and share this video so more people can benefit. Your support makes it possible for me to continue producing honest, valuable content. Now let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Once people pass 60, many of them walk into my clinic carrying a long list of prescriptions. It's not unusual for them to be on 2, 3, or even 4 different blood pressure medications. This isn't just an isolated problem, it's widespread. From major hospitals to small practices, I see older patients everywhere weighed down by heavy prescription regimens. Too often, one doctor after another keeps adding pills without pausing to ask, does this patient really need all of these? The result is that their blood pressure drops too low, leading to very real consequences: fatigue, poor balance, and dangerous falls. Picture this: a father or grandfather in your family steps outside after breakfast to enjoy the fresh air. He hasn't even walked a few steps before he stumbles and collapses. In many of the cases I've encountered, there was no new disease at play. The simple truth was that his medications had been prescribed beyond what his body actually needed. What makes this worse is that it's not a rare occurrence. It happens so often that I can only describe it as a widespread problem, not just a handful of isolated mistakes. It reflects a health system increasingly inclined toward overtreatment, chasing lower and lower blood pressure numbers while forgetting that every body has its own unique needs, especially in later years of life. This reality must be spoken of openly and faced seriously, because it is directly affecting the quality of life for millions of older adults across America and around the world. I'd like to pause here and hear your thoughts. In your opinion, what's the main reason so many older adults end up with dangerously low blood pressure? A. Because their bodies are weaker and they simply have to accept more medications. B. Because prescriptions and medication use are not being carefully reviewed and monitored. Share your choice in the comments. I look forward to reading your perspective. The root cause of high blood pressure in most patients is not simply age, but primarily insulin resistance, a metabolic disorder closely linked to diets high in refined carbohydrates, added sugars, and processed foods combined with a sedentary lifestyle. When insulin levels in the blood remain chronically elevated, the body gradually loses its ability to use energy efficiently, leading to higher blood sugar and increased pressure on the vascular system. This is not just a theory. It has been confirmed by numerous modern medical studies which show that the majority of hypertensive patients display signs of metabolic syndrome rooted in insulin resistance. At the same time, in older adults, particularly those between 70 and 90, arterial stiffening becomes a critical factor. Over the years, blood vessels naturally lose elasticity, meaning a higher blood pressure is sometimes required to maintain adequate blood flow to the brain and other vital organs. This reality suggests that what might be considered high blood pressure in younger adults may not be abnormal for seniors, and in fact may even be necessary for sustaining life functions. Applying the rigid target of 120/80 mmHg to every age group therefore lacks scientific grounding and may create unintended risks in treatment. From a physiological standpoint, slightly elevated blood pressure in older individuals can be an adaptive response that helps preserve balance rather than a pathological sign that must always be suppressed with multiple medications. For this reason, identifying the root causes of hypertension requires a holistic view that considers diet, lifestyle, metabolic condition, and age-related biological changes. Unfortunately, these factors are often overlooked, and patients are instead prescribed additional medications, which raises the risk of overdosing or overtreatment. Clinical observations and epidemiological data alike point to a clear truth-improving lifestyle through balanced nutrition. Regular physical activity and minimizing processed food intake can significantly reduce insulin resistance and help control blood pressure effectively without relying solely on drugs. This serves as a powerful reminder that to truly address hypertension at its core, we must first correct the underlying metabolic dysfunction and properly account for the body's natural physiological changes at different stages of life. One of the greatest dangers in treating hypertension among older adults is the risk of pushing blood pressure too low, a condition that can bring serious consequences often overlooked in routine care. When blood pressure drops below the level necessary to maintain adequate circulation, patients commonly experience weakness, dizziness, and lightheadedness when changing posture, especially when moving from sitting to standing. These clinical signs signal that the brain and other vital organs are not receiving enough blood supply, which significantly raises the risk of falls and injury. According to data from the U.S. National Institute on Aging, falls caused by orthostatic hypotension are among the leading causes of hip fractures and traumatic brain injuries in people over 65. Such events are also a major factor in the loss of independence, leaving many older adults reliant on family members or long-term care facilities. The risks extend beyond immediate injuries. Chronic low blood pressure deprives the brain of oxygen, which can damage neurons and contribute to long-term problems like memory loss, difficulty concentrating, and an increased risk of dementia. Multiple studies have documented a direct link between very low systolic blood pressure, below 100 mmHg, and higher rates of dementia in older populations. Particularly concerning is the aggressive lowering of blood pressure with multiple drugs, which can cause daily fluctuations that exacerbate cerebral hypoperfusion and worsen symptoms. From a clinical perspective, there have been cases where patients' systolic blood pressure fell to as low as 70 mmHg, leading to fainting episodes shortly after meals, requiring hospitalization and a complete reevaluation of their treatment regimen. These real-world situations highlight a troubling paradox. While the original goal of treatment is to prevent strokes and cardiovascular events, overcorrecting blood pressure can inadvertently introduce new dangers just as severe. Equally important is the fact that excessive lowering of blood pressure amplifies the likelihood of falls, a risk already heightened in older adults due to declining muscle mass and balance. What may seem like a simple fall can trigger a cascade of adverse events: fractures, prolonged immobility, pneumonia, from being bedridden, and ultimately severe overall decline. This is why the evaluation and management of blood pressure in older adults cannot rely solely on rigid numerical targets. It must also integrate careful observation of symptoms, functional capacity, and mental alertness. In other words, excessive hypotension is not just a numerical complication. It is one of the most critical threats to independence and quality of life in older patients. Addressing the overuse of blood pressure medications in older adults requires a dual strategy that combines evidence-based medical care with supportive natural measures. The first and most unshakable principle is that patients must never stop, reduce, or alter their blood pressure medications without explicit guidance from a qualified physician. Doing so could trigger severe complications such as hypertensive crisis stroke or myocardial infarction. Any medication adjustment must be carried out under close medical supervision, with a structured plan that includes both clinical assessment and laboratory monitoring. One of the most practical steps in reassessing treatment is the use of a home blood pressure monitor. These devices are relatively affordable, often ranging from $20 to $30, but provide immense value for ongoing health management. Patients are advised to measure their blood pressure 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and evening, over a period of 2 weeks. This process yields more than 40 readings, offering a far clearer picture of blood pressure trends than occasional office visits. It is crucial that these readings are carefully recorded, and then compared with measurements taken at the clinic to ensure accuracy and rule out device-related discrepancies. Once comprehensive data are available, physicians can better evaluate whether a reduction in dosage or discontinuation of certain medications is appropriate. In many cases, especially when patients have already made positive lifestyle changes and their blood pressure has stabilized at a safe level, tapering off medication can be achieved gradually without adverse effects. Alongside medical supervision, lifestyle modifications remain the cornerstone of sustainable management. Older adults should strive to maintain a healthy body weight since obesity exacerbates insulin resistance and contributes to hypertension. A diet rich in vegetables, fresh fruits, whole grains, and minimally processed foods helps ease strain on the cardiovascular system. Regular physical activity is equally essential. Brisk walking, light cycling, or resistance training with small weights not only improves cardiovascular health, but also preserves muscle mass, enhances balance, and reduces the risk of falls. The integration of modern medical oversight with sustainable lifestyle change represents the safest and most effective path for gradually moving patients away from unnecessary reliance on medications. Importantly, every patient's situation is unique, meaning that medication adjustments must be individualized based on blood pressure data, underlying conditions, and the body's adaptive capacity. Ultimately, only a coordinated partnership among doctors, patients, and their families can ensure that the process of reducing or discontinuing medications is both safe and truly beneficial in the long term. From the perspective of Professor Arnold Ehret in his work, The Mucusless Diet Healing System, the roots of many chronic diseases, including high blood pressure, lie not simply in age or genetics, but in the accumulation of metabolic waste products in the body, particularly mucus formed by the overconsumption of processed foods, animal products, and refined starches. As these substances build up, blood becomes less pure. The intestinal lining and blood vessels are strained, and the body's natural ability to regulate itself declines. Placed alongside modern medical science, this philosophy provides a valuable complementary insight. Long-term blood pressure control cannot depend on medication alone, but requires reducing the burden on the circulatory system and giving the body space to restore its own balance. In this framework, nutrition takes center stage, limiting red meat, dairy, and packaged foods while prioritizing fresh fruits. Vegetables and whole grains not only helps lower blood pressure naturally, but also improves overall health. Recent studies confirm that diets rich in fiber, vitamins, and minerals soften vessel walls, enhance elasticity, and stabilize blood sugar, all of which form the foundation for steady blood pressure. This perspective strengthens the message that instead of chasing a fixed number like 120 parts in the stomach, we need to look at the bigger picture, how the body is being nourished, whether lifestyle choices reduce stress, and whether the individual genuinely feels well in daily life. For older adults, the closing message is clear: blood pressure should not be seen as just a number on a machine, but as a reflection of the whole body, its lifestyle, diet, movement, and even mental state. Cardiovascular health, therefore, cannot rest on medications alone, but must be rooted in meaningful changes in how we eat and live. When the blood and gut are cleansed, as Ehret describes, the circulatory system runs more smoothly, and blood pressure can return to its natural equilibrium. The final message is this: sustainable health does not come from stacking more and more pills, but from conscious choices made at every meal, in every habit of movement, and in each mindful moment. That is the true foundation for maintaining independence, quality of life, and mental clarity well into later years. Looking back over this journey, it becomes clear that the story of blood pressure in those over 60 is not just about numbers on a monitor, but about the broader landscape of health, lifestyle, and the way our healthcare system operates. Overprescription is widespread, with many patients on multiple medications that sometimes drive blood pressure dangerously low, leading to fatigue, dizziness, falls, and even cognitive decline. The deeper cause of hypertension lies in insulin resistance shaped by poor diet and inactivity, while vascular stiffening with age further complicates the picture. This is why rigidly applying 100 to 20/80 to everyone is neither safe nor practical. The dangers of overtreatment are well documented, while solutions lie in a cautious, medically supervised approach that includes home monitoring, individualized treatment, and lifestyle reform. The core lesson is simple, yet profound: treat blood pressure not as an enemy to be suppressed at all costs, but as a signal that helps us understand our bodies. In practice, every older adult can take real steps by having a home blood pressure monitor recording measurements consistently and pairing that with small but sustainable changes in diet and exercise. Done faithfully, this creates the foundation to gradually reduce reliance on medication and maintain long-term vitality. So let me leave you with this in keeping blood pressure steady. Which do you believe matters more, lifestyle changes or adherence to medication? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you'd like more valuable resources, don't forget to fill out the form in the description to receive your free ebook on healing health naturally. And please subscribe, like, and share this video so we can spread this message further and continue creating meaningful content for you and countless others.